he had devotees receiving first initiation come up and go over the regulative principles, and then he would say, and how many rounds a day do you chant? And the devotees would say, 16. And then Prabhupada would say, minimum. So that was very instructive, that we think that after 16 rounds you got to put your beads down and go do your service, but Prabhupada said, if you chant Hare Krishna 24/7, I'll be very happy. So that was just the minimum. And then he said, he said, you can chant early in the morning and late at night, but don't count the rounds you chant in the afternoon. He said, I finish my rounds late at night. So that was an interesting thing. I heard him say that the mode of passion is prominent during the afternoon. There's a lot of activity, a lot of distraction, but he wanted us to be very, very focused and hear the chanting, our own chanting and chanting of others. So we would get the greatest benefit that way. The following day, Srila Prabhupada called me into his room in London. This is at Berry Place. And it was a private meeting. And I had never experienced that speaking with Prabhupada privately was something that was appropriate for me to do. But he wanted to convey to me a message. And he started speaking. His eyes were closed. And he was kind of leaning back. And he started talking about Mayavad philosophy and how philosophers were saying, I am God, you are God, we are all God. And then Prabhupada would say, this is going on. And every time he would state something that was false, erroneous, he would then say, this is going on. And eventually he got to the story where there were two frogs, and the two frogs had heard that there was a God, and they wanted to see proof of God. And so there was a stick, and they started jumping up and down on the stick. And they said, this is not God, it doesn't even respond. So they jumped up on a stone. And then the stone also didn't respond. So how can that be God? Then a crane appeared, a big bird. And Prabhupada started acting out the part of the crane. And I was sitting there, Aravinda and Shyamasundar were all listening very intently. It was like a very serious philosophical discussion. And then Prabhupada makes a gesture with his hand, and starts looking around. His eyes got real big. And his expression was like hilarious. And the crane ate one frog and then ate the other frog. And Prabhupada was going like that, It was so funny that I rolled over backwards. We were sitting cross-legged. And I just rolled over onto my back and my legs were up in the air. And then Prabhupada was laughing at me. And so the other guys were laughing at me too. So in the same 24-hour period, I had seen Prabhupada come to the point of tears in our interaction. And the next day, the point of laughter. And I was so happy to be a part of, Prabhupada's emotional experience of Krishna consciousness. Another time in LA, and I went into his room to offer obeisances, and he started talking to me before I could, I was on my hands and knees, and he started talking to me. So I couldn't just, put my head down and not answer. So on my hands and knees, I started responding. And Prabhupada said, when did you get here? I said, and I'm on my hands and knees, I said, I got here about 3 days ago, Srila Prabhupada. And then he said again, I saw you in the class. Like 400 devotees to hear his class in the temple room. And I was just shocked, that he would say that. And then I just put my head down quickly and then got up. Prabhupada, come sit here. I went and sat down next to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, I wanted to ask your opinion on something. My opinion? What is the value of my opinion? And he said, I'm thinking of my travel plan, my itinerary. And he said, I think now, so that I can continue working on the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that I will spend 4 months in Los Angeles, 4 months in London, and 4 months in India. What do you think of that plan? And I said, I think that's a great plan, Srila Prabhupada. I wasn't going to make that same mistake of doubting. That's his plan. Prabhupada would say, you have your plan, I have my plan, and Krishna has his plan. But this was obviously Prabhupada's plan. I was not going to contradict it. But plus, I could see the logic in it. He said, I will be able to translate and write the commentaries to my books, and then devotees can come from all over to see me in those 3 locations. What do you think? I said, that's a great plan, Srila Prabhupada. I will come to see you in London. So that was the idea, that we all knew that nobody could make Srila Prabhupada's travel plans. He made his own plans. Sometimes he would ask Prajimna Panditji, when is the next auspicious day to travel? And he would say, next auspicious day is Tuesday. And Prabhupada said, we cannot wait, we must leave on Sunday. So it was, you couldn't make his plans. But that was part of, Srila Prabhupada being guided by Krishna. Every move, every action, every instruction, everything that was in his books was coming through him, from Krishna to us. And there's power in those words. Then Pushta Krishna asked, Prabhupada, in the spiritual world, can you go from one planet to another? And Prabhupada said, the material laws are not acting there, so yes, you can do that. And then he says, Prabhupada, will we recognize you in the spiritual world when we arrive? And he said, yes, you will recognize me. He had previously said, and we will have big ISKCON in the spiritual world. He said, that is my role, that when you return back home, back to Godhead, the spiritual master will take your hand and put your hand in Krishna's hand and make the introduction. So that's an eternal position that he has. We are eternally related to Srila Prabhupada.
Je anilo premadana karuna prachu